All right, welcome back, everyone. Who enjoyed the barbecue? Who enjoyed the barbecue? Anyone? It was good, right? Just so you know, Sanjeev and I fought hard for that barbecue. Chris Gardner, he's a pescatarian. He was highly skeptical. So every time you see Chris out in the hall from here on in, just say, Chris, the barbecue is outstanding. You'll be doing Sanjeev and I a personal favor. All right, welcome back to Hall B, B for best. And we hope you're all set for a great afternoon. We begin this afternoon, though, the way every project begins. Estimating is the lifeblood of winning work in construction. But the process is changing fast. AI, automation, real-time data, they're all reshaping how teams do takeoffs, track supply chain variables, and deliver competitive bids. Our next speaker, Dustin DeVan, is one of the most influential voices in pre-construction technology. He started as a GC before founding Building Connected, a platform that reshaped pre-construction and was later acquired by Autodesk. And now he is the CEO of EdiPhi, leading the charge on cloud-based estimating solutions to help teams win work with accuracy and speed. He's here with us today from the ancestral homeland of giants, both tech and baseball, the great city of San Francisco. Please join me in welcoming Dustin DeVan. That was hard for me to say.
Good job. Okay, it is wonderful to be here. I want to thank the ICBA for the invitation. I don't often get to come in and speak at events about where I see the industry going. Usually I'm paying for the speaking engagement, so I'm really trying to promote my company. So this is going to be a little bit of fun. I will go ahead and introduce myself. So my name is Dustin DeVan. I did start my career as a general contractor. I never meant to get into commercial construction. I actually studied rocket science in undergrad and got published in combinatorial mathematics, but I found it quite boring. So I got a job with Bechtel and did that for a little bit. Then they wanted to ship me off to Libya, and I wasn't about to go to Libya. So then I knew someone building a Kaiser $80 million hospital, and he's like, shoot, if you can understand rocket science, I can teach you construction. So I did that for the next 5 years, and then I moved to Silicon Valley, and I started thinking about how we can make construction easier and easier to communicate. So my first idea was Building Connected, and the concept behind Building Connected was this industry is highly collaborative, yet it is highly fragmented. And so rather than everyone maintaining a contact database of all of their vendors, if we could create a network, it would be easier to communicate with everyone. Now, Building Connected had a long-term vision. We didn't quite reach the goal that I wanted, but it was a great outcome. How many people have used that software? Pretty good outcome. I pride it on being one of the easiest softwares to use in construction. I think all software should kind of aim for that level of usability. Unfortunately, when I got acquired by Autodesk, they didn't see the world the way I did. I wanted to build products that would improve pre-con, and so now I'm getting to do it another time. I'm going to walk around. Can everyone still hear me? Great. All right. I am fascinated by construction because we get to combine usability and aesthetics. But how many have been on projects where you sacrifice aesthetics for usability because of value engineering or quote-unquote cost reduction? Pretty much everyone, right? The problem is, why are we getting to a point where we have a building very, very far along in the design process and we realize no one can ever go pay for that project? It costs far too much for what we're trying to build. Okay, I want to know a little bit about the demographics of this room. How many architects do we have in here? None. How many general contractors? Sweet. This is going to go a lot better because what I'm about to say might offend some designers out there. I've been on projects where we've had to reduce floors, eliminate entire TIs, go through value engineering for 2 years, and then never move forward. It's a pain in the rear, and things have to change. And so when you're constantly trying to build the most beautiful project in the world, but you're trying to also think about the cost of the project, it sometimes becomes either or. And I think we need to switch that paradigm. And we need to start talking about what is our priorities. And I think far too often, the reason this talk is budget before blueprints is because we should have more conversations earlier on that can inform designers on what to go out and design. I do actually talk to many design firms all the time, and they don't understand what are the real cost drivers in construction today. A lot of general contractors, even when they get conceptual designs from an architect, they produce low fidelity estimates that don't inform designers on what you're including. If you price a fit out at $500 a foot, that doesn't tell them anything about what they're going to put in that $500 a foot. So the next time you get a set of drawings and you go to design development, well, now you actually got to price something. And you can have a lot of mismatches when you do it in that framework. Okay. So we've all kind of seen the stats. In construction, people like to say it's always over budget, it's always delayed. There's a bunch of different estimates that go on. Well, where are these numbers coming from? Well, the first budget is usually done from a cost consultant. Since we have a lot of general contractors in the room, how many think cost consultants are good at estimating construction? Are you a cost consultant? Okay, well. Look, they have a purpose, but the projects I've bid on, they haven't been to the market, they haven't bought out the work in a long time, and they don't understand where the markets move because a lot of times costs are moving around a lot. But when you set the benchmark with the client, that first conversation about a cost, that means that that's what they're thinking. And so when the project costs 50% more than what they were expecting, it feels like a budget overrun. And then we talk about delays. Why did delays occur? Delays occur mostly, in my opinion, is because you didn't run a proper pre-con process. So we should spend a whole lot more time planning and getting to a design that we know the buyout's going to work, the procurement's going to work, the plan is set in place, and we'll be a lot better off. The last point is we go through this process of estimating basis of design, schematic design, design development, construction documents, and we do all these revisions. We need to start condensing the point in time it takes from getting an idea to a GMP or a contract that we can go out and execute, because pre-con's taking longer than it actually even takes to build a project. Okay, so why is this taking place? Like, we got to ask fundamental questions if we want to address the future of pre-con. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, this is going to conflate a lot with the industry leaders, and I'll talk about why that is, but we design before we price. Think about it if you were going to go car shopping. Do any of you go car shopping without a budget in mind? Or do you just go straight to the Lambo dealership and like, hey, okay, how do we get it now down to $50,000? No, that doesn't work, right? Why do we do this where we design a project, we have no idea what it's going to cost, we get a price, and we're like, well, I can't pay for that. It's pretty insane. It actually doesn't function like that anywhere else. So I think we're approaching pre-construction all wrong. Who was at Autodesk University? Anyone? You were? So Andrew's the CEO of Autodesk. He bought my last company. I used to report to someone who reported to him. I'd have one-on-ones with him. Autodesk is very design-centric. They believe that design is first in every project. I'm here to tell you design is not first in every project. The client has some sort of objective of why they're doing this. And often they want to spend a certain amount of money and get a certain amount of performance. In many, many projects, design is not the most important thing. If you're building schools, it's how many seats are in a classroom. If you're building a medical office building, it's how many exams or patient rooms. If you're building a multifamily development, it's that performance of that asset over time. And most of those costs can be estimated without design. If you saw their performance, they would have you design every project, and then on his screen, he was like moving buildings around and value engineering it without ever thinking of cost. That's not the future I see for pre-construction. So when I think about projects in construction, I think that every project's on some sort of spectrum, where a project could be, I only care about aesthetics. I want to see the most beautiful project in the world created. Cost is not an object, so price does not matter. For those projects, I think you need to go to the most expensive designer, and you will be quite happy with the results at the end of the day. On the other end of the spectrum is, I only care about the function of this building. Maybe I'm building a storage facility, so I want the lowest cost that meets my objective. At that point in time, I think you should go straight to a builder and say, what can I do this for? Here's my program. That's it. And then you can have a designer detail out once we got a cost we agree to. But it's a spectrum, and a project lays somewhere on that spectrum. But I will contend that most projects gravitate where cost is a very, very critical component. And if cost is a critical component, then why are we designing first? We should understand from the estimate, we should be able to inform designers of what to go design that is going to get them within a range that's tolerable. And that's actually what I think the future of pre-construction should be, is that owners, developers are talking to builders as their first point of contact in order to understand what they could potentially go out and do. So how do we enable a future like that? Because that future doesn't exist right now. I'm sure most of you are not the first person that a client talks to. You sometimes hope to be, but probably not most cases. We need software to improve drastically in pre-con. Unfortunately, most venture capital, which is how most tech companies get founded, has gone to project management. It was really cool. I ran into Tui, the founder and CEO of Procore, built a beautiful company, known him for like over 10 years. We took a picture together. That man's changed construction and improved it drastically. Even if you don't use Procore, the amount of innovation that's come and the amount of venture capital and funding that's come to build tools for this space has been dramatically improved because of his organization. But we haven't done that in pre-con. I have the biggest exit in pre-con so far, and it's nowhere near what Procore's done and some of these other tools. The reason we have not had a big exit in pre-con is because estimating is done on an Excel spreadsheet or a desktop application. I will bet 90% of the people in here use Excel, WinEst, Sage, BeckDestiny, or CostX. Raise your hand if you're one of those. Sounds right. Those tools are not built for the future, and they never will be. No matter what they say about migrating to the cloud, that's not a thing. They have to rewrite all their code. It's 10 years of work for ROI that'll never happen. We have to move to the cloud so we can actually have real-time collaboration, not just internal to your organization, but to be able to speak with the project stakeholders and design partners as fast as possible asynchronously. I always say that wrong. You get what I'm saying. Once we move estimating to the cloud, we need to also think about estimating a little bit differently. Most estimating tools were built for an event, and that event was I have a design and I need to extract the quantities and then price those quantities, mark it up, and send it back to a client. But if we're trying to be the first point of contact for a client, you actually have to input what are the design parameters. So you need to build estimating tools that allow you to define the mass of the structure, the geometries of the building, what systems are going to go in there, so that you can estimate and inform designers of your qualifications so that they can digest those qualifications. This is why my company, EdiPhi, allows you to create what we call area sheets, which define the gross square footage by different asset classes, helps you build the floor-to-floor height in the perimeter of each floor so that you can know how much exterior skin you have, the floor-to-floor ratio. We allow you to define the vertical transportations. Tie these into complex systems, which are assemblies on steroids, so that you can estimate whether it's foundations or curtain wall systems using this parametric data. This might look familiar to a lot of you. We have something we call unit mix, which allows you to programmatically estimate the number of units you have by floor, which obviously works really well for multifamily development, but it works really well for healthcare. It works really well for schools. We have companies using it to build some of the largest data centers in the world. Each unit can have a detailed estimate of your assumptions down to what appliances are you including in this unit. So when you're programmatically estimating these tools, you have a report saying, this is what I'm assuming for VCT, this is what I'm assuming for millwork, this is what I'm assuming for a cost. And then you can go ahead and add in all the ancillary rooms, like what is the janitor closet, what's the electrical room. So it's a methodology to allow you to estimate, but in high fidelity, where you have as early as possible. And we're being used by some of the largest builders in the world already. We've only been around 2 years. I'm proud to say that 5 of the ENR's top 20 list have now standardized on EdiPhi. There's never been an estimating tool or a pre-construction solution that's grown that fast. But we're going to talk about the future now. And the future, or AI right now in construction is really boring in my opinion. Right now people are fixated on 2D quantity takeoff and extracting those quantities. That is the blocking and tackling sort of things that doesn't get me excited. Here's why it doesn't get me excited. In a year, or maybe 2 at the most, you can drop it all into ChatGPT and this is going to be done. So this is going to be off-the-shelf software. Anyone's going to be able to use it. You're not going to have to pay for it. It's going to be a $20 subscription. ChatGPT is going to get you the 2D quantities. It's really close. And then we extract specifications. So, all right, if that's just going to be off-the-shelf AI tools that you guys can use, and you can use Gemini or whatever model you want, what can we do? Well, if we move estimating to a cloud, and we have a foundation for how you estimate from, I have an idea, I have schematic designs, I have design documents, and I have construction documents. One of the things language models are particularly good at is understanding relationships between structured data. And so what we're building with EdiPhi is a risk assessment tool. How many of you have estimated something and maybe left out a scope, forgot to revise a line item, maybe didn't update a unit cost? Anyone? You guys are all perfect? I don't believe you. When you estimate thousands of line items for a project, it's very easy to make a mistake. And those mistakes cost you money or erode your trust with a client. This is a framework of a model that as you estimate, we're going to get better and better at understanding, is this the right scope of work for this project, these quantities, and help you catch your mistakes so you don't have issues with what product you're producing. But what gets me more excited in the future is some of the things we can do by moving costs to the cloud in a structured way. First, we start with risk assessment, but then we should start pricing to design. So building the frameworks where we understand the design intent within the estimate, we should be able to produce a model for an estimator to go detail, or for a design team to go detail. We shouldn't start with design and go to cost. We should price and then go to design. That's the future of pre-con. And a lot of people, including Autodesk, will tell you I'm crazy. A lot of venture capitalists are betting on the reverse. They're wrong. And then in other industries, we have tools which are called CPQs. Anyone ever heard that term before? Maybe we have some underbuyers? Okay. Configurable price quoting. This is where you're going to be able to provide option engineering for projects and in means and ways you've never thought of. So any estimator or pre-con person can only really rely on their level of knowledge. And if they get really good, they can rely on their team. But a language model can rely on everything you've ever priced before as optionality for a project. That's pretty far away, though. But that's where we can take it if we move things to the cloud. So, in my opinion, who are the GCs that actually succeed in the future? You need to start today and find an estimating pre-con solution that's in the cloud. You have to start structuring your project data. You want to have as much historical information that is organized in a way that can be utilized. Whether you choose my company, EdiPhi, or there's not other good options, but you can go with them. You got to start thinking about that. Your Excel spreadsheets are wonderful, but they're really not that usable to anyone but yourself on your last project. Start having conversations with your clients. Like, honestly, I push every GC, show them your capacity to price a project in a methodology that informs the designers of what you're thinking. Too many contractors don't do this, and I don't understand why. Start pricing in high fidelity, in schematic designs, and in conceptual designs. But most importantly, and this is a very true statement, pre-con is the least adoptive of technologies. How many of you have even tested another estimating solution in the last 12 months? Exactly. So if you want better tooling, build out a program within your companies to try new software. Not saying deploy it right away, but you need to know what companies can do. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. Who here thinks Autodesk is innovative? Okay. They buy companies. They don't build anything. Well, if you don't ever try out these new technology companies, many of them will fail. And at the end of the day, you're going to be left with Autodesk. And Steve Jobs, when he released the Macintosh, warned of a world. So to paraphrase him, he warned of a world where IBM took over, Big Blue. I'm warning of a world where you're just left with Autodesk software. And there's some really cool tech coming out that can actually make pre-con a lot better. And so it's really up to all the builders in this place to give the early stage companies, mine included, but all of them, an actual shot. It doesn't take that much to try out new software. It will make your company better. It'll create a culture of innovation. Yes,
There is a bandwidth issue, but try it out. So that would be my ending message. And I have 1 minute and 30 seconds, so if there are questions, I'd be happy to take them. Thank you. Yeah.
When it comes to this definition, I know that it's going to be very hard when you estimate something from a 2D layout. But when it comes to BIMs, when you include metadata inside the 3D objects, I think AI can help a lot doing this.
I do think. And to be honest, design and costing are symbiotic. But we can price a lot of things a lot faster right now than we can model a lot of things. And so if we can get to a foundation, we can inform either 2D or 3D, the model, of what we think that they need to assume, and then they can make those tweaks. The problem is, when we start with a concept that is not feasible from day one, that's a big problem. Let's stop doing that. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.